Dreamtime history for sleep.
Before we begin, remember one thing. The most beloved gods often hide the darkest secrets. The true dual nature of Hathor is a truth lost to most, a paradox encrypted not in myth, keyed, but in the sacred hieroglyphs of ancient temple walls. And here is the most astonishing part. This goddess of joy, music, and love was also a harbinger of cosmic annihilation. Uncovering this link has forced Egyptologists to question everything they thought they knew about divine power. So make sure you watch this video until the very end. Let's begin. Before the first stone of the pyramids was laid, before the rise of the first pharaoh, there was the sky. And from the dark, silent waters of pre-creation, a consciousness stirred. This was the dawn of Hathor. She was not born on Earth, but of the cosmos itself, a primordial force emerging from the chaos to bring order. In the earliest whispers of Egyptian belief, she is the great celestial cow, whose star-dappled belly forms the vault of the heavens. She is the cosmic mother who births the sun god Ra each morning, releasing him from the darkness to begin his daily journey across the sky she creates. Look up at the night sky, at the dense, shimmering river of the Milky Way. To the ancient Egyptians, this wasn't a random cascade of distant suns. It was the life-giving milk flowing from the celestial goddess, nourishing all of creation. Her earliest form, the divine cow, was the ultimate symbol of motherhood, abundance, and the sustaining power of the universe. She was the sky that sheltered the world, the gentle presence that promised a new day. Her very name reveals the core of her identity. Hathor, in the ancient tongue, translates directly as the house of Horus. She is not a literal building, but a profound metaphysical concept. She is the divine enclosure, the sacred space, the heavenly body that both contains and protects the great falcon god, Horus, the divine archetype of the pharaoh. By being the house of Horus, she is the cosmic mother who conceives, nurtures, and ultimately legitimizes the king's right to rule. She is the divine authority from which earthly power flows, while other deities govern specific domains, writing, the afterlife. The harvest Hathor's portfolio was breathtakingly vast, almost without parallel. Absolutely. But she was also the goddess of ecstatic joy, of music that moved the soul, and of intoxicating dance. She was the protector of women and childbirth. Ket, also the patron deity of miners, toiling in the harsh desert for turquoise and gold. She was the Golden One, a radiant, benevolent force. But within that golden light, she held a capacity for terrifying ferocity. This multifaceted nature was not a contradiction. It was fundamental to the Egyptian concept of cosmic balance, or Mat. Hathor was the rhythm of the universe, made divine. She was the energy that propelled Ra's solar boat across the sky each day, and she was the gentle western horizon that welcomed him at dusk, ready to guide him through the perilous night. Through her, the eternal cycles of birth, death, and rebirth were not abstract theology. They were a daily, visible reality. Her worship, therefore, was not confined to a single place. It bloomed organically across the land, long before her grand temple at Dendara would become the center of her cult. From the earliest settlements in Upper Egypt to the far-flung oases of the desert, evidence of her veneration is found etched into the landscape. She was a constant, nurturing presence, woven into the very fabric of Egyptian life from its inception. She was the ultimate mother, the golden light, the source of all joy. but even the most loving mother can be pushed to fury. The creator can also be the destroyer. The golden light of creation was about to be eclipsed by a shadow of blood-red rage. A fury so immense it threatened to unmake the world. From the silent turning of the stars, Hathor's influence descended, touching the very heart of the human world. She was not a distant, untouchable deity, but a presence felt in the most personal moments of life. She was the divine source of Nefru, the Egyptian concept of perfect, calmness, beauty, and, more than anything, she was the goddess of love. Not a tame or simple love, but love in all its forms. The intoxicating rush of new passion, the deep comfort of a lasting bond, the pure, sensual pleasure of being alive. In ancient Egypt, to fall in love was to be touched by Hathor herself. Kea name was invoked in love songs, her image carved onto bedposts. Atia, she was the unseen guest at every wedding, the silent witness to every lover's promise. This celebration of love began with the self. For the Egyptians, beauty was not vanity, it was a sacred art, a way of reflecting the divine order on the human form. Adornment was a form of worship. The intricate wigs, the shimmering gold collars, the delicate linen garments all were offerings to the golden one. The vibrant green malachite and dark coal that outlined their eyes were her sacred colors. This makeup was more than cosmetic. It was a magical shield, a ritual of protection and consecration, drawing the gaze of the goddess while warding off evil. To be beautiful was to be in a state of grace, to make oneself a worthy vessel for joy, and joy was her ultimate ritual. Hathor's temples were not somber, silent places. They rang with the sound of music and laughter. Her priestesses were masters of the harp, the lute, and her most sacred instrument, the sistrum. Its rattling, jingling sound was believed to soothe the gods, drive away hostile spirits, and invoke Hathor's blissful presence. Festivals in her honor were ecstatic affairs, filled with dance, song, and the generous consumption of beer and wine. Drunkenness, in her worship, was not a sin but a pathway, a method of shedding inhibition to achieve a state of divine communion. To dance for Hathor was to pray with your entire body. This sacred ecstasy made her the great patron of all artists. Musicians composed hymns to her glory. Sculptors captured her serene smile in stone. And poets wrote verses that blurred the line between earthly love and divine devotion. They were her chosen people, channeling her essence into forms that could be seen, heard, and felt by all. Their creativity was her gift to humanity, a constant reminder of the beauty that flowed from the divine realm into our own, for those seeking her favor more directly. Magic and ritual offered a personal line of communication. Amulets bearing her likeness were worn to attract a partner or ensure a safe childbirth. Spells were cast over beer, creating love potions to be subtly given to a desired person. Small, personal shrines were filled with offerings, turquoise, beads, mirrors, flowers in the hope of receiving Hathor's embrace. Tease. This wasn't just a poetic phrase. It was the ultimate blessing, a profound sense of divine comfort, contentment, an overwhelming bliss that she bestowed upon her followers. Adik was the feeling of being held, protected, and loved by the universe itself. She was the mistress of the heart, the lady of life's greatest pleasures. Her world was one of beauty, music, and intoxicating joy. The same goddess who filled the world with laughter and light held a power far more ancient, and far more terrifying than her followers could ever imagine. But beyond the ecstatic dance and the lover's vow, Hathor's influence reached into the most profound and vulnerable of human experiences, the creation of life itself. Her love was not only romantic, it was generative, a cosmic force that pulsed at the heart of existence. She was not simply a mother. She was the archetypal mother, the great celestial womb from which all life emerged. In the quiet, anxious corners of every Egyptian home, her presence was a comforting warmth. For a woman in the throes of labor, Hathor was the ultimate guardian. It was here that Hathor's name was whispered like a prayer, her amulets clutched for protection. She was the divine midwife who guided the soul into the world, who shielded the newborn from unseen dangers and soothed the fears of the new mother. She transformed a terrifying biological event into a sacred rite of passage. This boundless maternal energy found its most potent symbol in the form of a cow. To the Egyptians, who depended on the Nile's bounty, the cow was the perfect emblem of selfless nourishment. Its milk was life, a white river of sustenance, mirroring the great river that fed their civilization. As the divine cow, Hathor was the source of all nourishment, physical and spiritual. Her body was the sky, her horns the crescent moon, and her milk was the very stuff of stars. Yet, her role at birth could be as mysterious as it was comforting. Appearing at the bedside of newborns were the 7 Hathors, collective of her manifestations who were both blessings and oracles. These 7 divine figures would pronounce the newborn's destiny, weaving the thread of its fate from the very first breath. They were the keepers of a life's unwritten story, their pronouncements unchangeable and absolute. This maternal power extended to the highest echelons of the state, directly into the mythology of kingship. Hathor was the mother, or often the divine wet nurse, the falcon god Horus, the very deity from whom the pharaoh derived his authority. In temples across Egypt, we see an extraordinary image: the king, a grown man, suckling directly from the udder of the goddess in her bovine form. This was not a mere symbol. It was a profound theological statement. Through her milk, she was not just feeding a child. She was transmitting divinity itself, legitimizing the ruler's right to the throne, and conferring upon him her fierce, maternal protection. Through her, the family became more than a social unit. It became a sacred reflection of a cosmic order. She sanctified the bond between mother and child, elevated the act of creation, and ensured the eternal continuation of the Egyptian people. Her love was the bedrock of civilization, nurturing everything from the smallest infant to the most powerful pharaoh. But for all her life-giving warmth, the golden light of Hathor could cast a terrifying shadow. Love, when betrayed, can curdle into a fury unlike any other. This is the story of that fury, the story of the Eye of Ra. The myth begins in the twilight of the gods. The sun god Ra, creator of all, had grown old. His bones were like silver, his flesh like gold, and humanity, his own children, saw his frailty not with compassion, but with contempt. They began to plot against him, their whispers of rebellion poisoning the very land he had made for them. Hearing their treachery, Ra's divine heart burned with rage. He summoned the gods and decreed a punishment. He would not send a flood or a famine. He would send an extension of his own being, a living weapon of absolute power, his eye. And who was this eye? He called forth his daughter, Hathor. In that moment, she was not the goddess of the sistrum and the dance. Ra's incandescent rage poured into her, and the Golden One was consumed by a terrifying fire. Her gentle form warped and swelled into that of a fearsome lioness. Her laughter became a blood-curdling roar. Teeth, she was transformed into Sekhmet, the powerful one, the vengeful, feral incarnation of the divine feminine. She descended upon the Nile Valley not as a blessing, but as a plague. She was a firestorm of claws and teeth, tearing through the armies of the rebellious and the innocent alike. Kutchi sands drank so much blood they turned to mud. Her slaughter was so absolute, so gleeful, that Ra himself, looking down from the heavens, was horrified. He had intended to punish humanity, not annihilate it. His justice had become a divine massacre. He had to stop her. But how do you stop a force of nature? Ra commanded his priests to brew thousands of jars of beer, a drink beloved by Hathor. Then he had them mix it with red ochre from the island of Elephantine until the liquid ran thick and dark, shimmering with the exact color of human blood. At dawn, the lioness awoke, her thirst for blood raging. She saw the vast crimson lake and, believing it to be the aftermath of her own carnage, she waded in and began to drink greedily. She drank and drank, and the potent brew began to work its magic. The divine rage was diluted, then drowned in a tide of intoxication. Her bloodlust cooled, her savage muscles relaxed, and finally, the mighty Sekhmet fell into a deep, drunken slumber. When she awoke, the madness was gone. She was Hathor once more. For the Egyptians, this myth was a cornerstone of their theology. Hathor and Sekhmet were not two different goddesses. They were two faces of a single cosmic truth. The same divine energy that creates life, love, and joy must also have the power to destroy it. It is the balance of the universe. The gentle sun that nourishes the crops is the same sun that can scorch the earth to dust. Sekhmet's rage was not chaos. It was a terrible, violent recalibration. Humanity's rebellion had thrown the world out of Mat, the fundamental principle of cosmic order and truth. Her rampage, in its horrifying efficiency, was an act to restore that balance. She was a protector against chaos, even if her methods were terrifying to behold. The myth teaches of divine justice, but also of divine mercy, the last-minute reprieve that saved humanity from its own arrogance. I wipe that saved by a drunken stupor. But the lioness was not vanquished. She was merely sleeping within the goddess of joy, a silent, potent reminder of her power. How then does a civilization live with such a deity, knowing that the goddess who blesses your love and your children could, at any moment, be the one to unmake your entire world? But Hathor's divinity was not a distant, cosmic abstraction. It was a force that vibrated in the very air, a power that could be felt, touched, and, most importantly, heard. To enter her temple was to enter a world of sound. At the heart of this sacred soundscape was her signature instrument, the sistrum, intricately crafted from bronze, ivory, or faience. Its U-shaped loop held rattling discs on crossbars. When shaken, it didn't produce a melody, but something more primal, a soft, shimmering rustle, like wind through papyrus reeds, or a hiss that could command the attention of gods and mortals alike. This sound was a weapon and a blessing. It was believed to pacify the rage of fierce deities, its vibrations soothing divine fury. Simultaneously, its sharp rattle drove away malevolent spirits, cleansing the sacred space and warding off the chaos of the world. The sistrum was an instrument of divine order, shaken to invoke rapture and repel fear, and this sound was the pulse of her worship. Ate, the air is thick, not with solemn prayer, but with a joyous cacophony. Te, the beat of drums, the call of the flute, the rhythm of clapping hands, and above it all, the sound of 10,000 sistra shaken in unison. A shimmering wave of sound that resonated in the soul. Dance was not an afterthought. It was a prayer in motion. Men and women, priests and commoners, moved together in rhythmic ecstasy, their bodies becoming instruments of devotion. This was a spirituality that embraced the full spectrum of human experience, including states that other traditions might shun. Hathor was the goddess of ecstatic revelry, and drunkenness was a key to her worship. At the festival of drunkenness, vast quantities of beer, dyed red to resemble the blood that once slaked the thirst of a raging goddess, were consumed not as a simple indulgence, but as a sacred sacrament. The goal was to achieve a state of divine intoxication, to loosen the grip of the conscious mind and allow the spirit to commune directly with the goddess. It was a path to transcendence through the senses, a temporary dissolution of the self into the cosmic whole. This embrace of ecstatic states was rooted in a profound Egyptian concept, Hedjit, often translated as joy or delight. Hedjit was far more. It was a radiant, life-affirming pleasure that was considered a vital component of spiritual and physical well-being. To experience Hedjit was to align oneself with the creative, benevolent forces of the universe. Thus, for the followers of Hathor, worship was life itself. To laugh, to sing, to create music, to adorn the body with beautiful jewelry, to love another being, these were not distractions from the divine. They were the most potent forms of prayer. They were acts of honoring the goddess by embodying her gifts, by filling the world with the very beauty, mirth, and music that were her essence. The echoes of this belief that sound can heal, that joy can elevate the spirit, reverberate through millennia of spiritual practice. This symphony of life, this sacred celebration of the senses, was her greatest gift to the living. Tethos. Music did not fall silent at the tomb's door. As for the Egyptians, the greatest journey was yet to come, and they would need a guide through the darkness of the underworld. A guide who knew not only the songs of life, but the silent path of the dead. How did this radiant goddess of joy transform into the solemn escort of souls, the one who opened the gates to the afterlife? From the celestial dance of the cosmos, Hathor's influence flowed down to the very earth itself, embedding her power. In the most coveted materials known to humankind was a power so radiant, so tangible. It earned her one of her most enduring epithets, Abatet, the Golden One. This was no mere poetic title. For the Egyptians, gold was not simply a measure of wealth or a medium of exchange. It was celestial light made solid. It was the incorruptible, eternal flesh of the gods. So when artisans fashioned a statue of Hathor, burnishing its surface until it shone, they weren't just creating an inert symbol. They were crafting a physical vessel for her divine essence, giving her a tangible, earthly body that would never tarnish or decay. Her dominion over the earth's treasures extended far beyond the fertile Nile Valley. To the east, in the harsh, sun-scorched wilderness of the Sinai Peninsula, a different kind of magic lay hidden beneath the rock. Mefkat, the vibrant blue-green stone we call turquoise. Here, at forbidding sites like Sarabat, El Qadim, generations of miners toiled in treacherous conditions to extract this precious gem. They were far from home, facing danger at every turn, but they did not see themselves as alone. Hathor, as their fierce protector, their mistress of turquoise. They carved hundreds of votive, steely, and humble shrines directly into the mountainside, their desperate prayers etched into the very rock that held her sacred stone, the brilliant blue of the turquoise, mirroring the color of the life-giving Nile, and the sky was for them a sign of her presence in a desolate land. Each gleaming vein was a gift, a vibrant promise of safety and reward from their golden goddess. This divine generosity, unearthed in the desert, also saturated the homeland. Hathor's golden light was the same divine energy that ripened the barley, swelled the figs, and ensured the success of the grape harvest. She was the force that guaranteed the lifeblood of the Nile would rise and fall in its perfect rhythm, depositing the rich black silt that made the land the breadbasket of the ancient world. Her presence meant prosperity in its most visceral forms, the joyful clamor of a full granary, the lowing of healthy cattle, the laughter of children with full bellies. To pray to Hathor for prosperity was to ask for the fundamental pillars of civilization itself. The offerings laid at her feet, fragrant lotus flowers, intricate mirrors that caught the sun, jars of the finest beer, and loaves of bread shaped like her sacred sycamore leaves, were part of a sacred, ongoing dialogue. It was a partnership, an appeal for the boundless abundance she so willingly bestowed upon her people. Her portfolio of wealth's management didn't stop at Egypt's borders. Hathor was a divine economist, a patron of the perilous expeditions that pushed the boundaries of the known world. When Egyptian ships set out for the fabled land of Puntay to trade for incense, myrrh, and ebony, or too bibulous for cedarwood, it was Hathor they invoked to calm the seas and ensure a profitable return. She was the goddess who blessed the exchange, who oversaw the flow of precious goods that made Egypt a superpower of the ancient world. Her name was a whisper on the desert wind among the caravans heading for the oases of the south. She was the divine diplomat whose influence secured the resources that built the temples and filled the tombs, linking Egypt to a wider world through the common language of trade and treasure. She was the source of all that glittered, all that sustained, all that was beautiful and valuable. A benevolent, radiant force of pure, life-affirming abundance. But could a goddess of such overwhelming light and generosity truly exist without an equal and opposite shadow? Can the same hand that offers a golden cup of wine also wield a sword of terrible judgment? Because the golden one had another face, one born not of sunlight and turquoise, but of blood, fire, and a divine rage that could unmake the world. For a civilization so devoted to the vibrant pulse of life, the final shadow of death was a constant presence. It was the great, unavoidable question. And here too, in the silent realm of eternity, Hathor's golden light was not extinguished. It was transformed. Her role as the giver of life found its ultimate expression in guiding that life to its next chapter. She became the psychopomp, the celestial guide, for the soul embarking on its most perilous voyage, when the heart ceased to beat. The ancient Egyptians believed the spirit, or Ba, began a treacherous journey through the Duat, an underworld fraught with demons and terrifying trials. It was a labyrinth of darkness and judgment, and one did not travel it alone. At the threshold of this realm stood Hathor. In her aspect as mistress of the West, The Egyptians called the land of the dead the West, the place where the sun god Ra set each evening, beginning his own nightly journey through the underworld. As mistress of this liminal space, Hathor was not a figure of dread, but one of profound comfort. She was the first divine face a soul would see, a promise that the end was not oblivion, but a transition. This promise was made manifest in one of her most beautiful and enduring forms, the Lady of the Sycamore Tree, at the very edge of the desert, where the mortal world met the eternal. This sacred tree was said to stand. From its branches, the goddess would emerge, a vision of serenity. To the weary soul, parched from its earthly life and fearful of the path ahead, she offered celestial sustenance, the cool water of life and the bread of eternity. This was no simple meal. It was a sacrament, a rite of passage that purified the spirit and fortified it for the trials to come, assuring it would not perish from hunger or thirst in the afterlife. It is a promise etched into the very fabric of Egyptian funerary belief. Look closely at the walls of tombs from Luxor to the Valley of the Kings, and you will find her watching, waiting. Her serene face, with its gentle cow ears, peers from sarcophagi, offering protection. Q. She is painted onto funerary stele, her arms outstretched to welcome the deceased. Q. These were not mere decorations. Q. They were potent, magical invocations. A visual prayer that the tomb's occupant would be received by the goddess, reborn through her maternal power, and sheltered in her embrace for all time. The Egyptian hope for the afterlife was not to exist as a wispy, disembodied ghost. It was to live again, fully and completely, with all the senses intact. They feared the second death, the true annihilation of the soul in the underworld. While the god Osiris presided over the final judgment, it was Hathor who offered the promise that made judgment worth facing. She was the assurance that life, in all its richness, would continue. And what was this eternal life she offered? It was a paradise reflecting her own divine nature. The ultimate destination was the field of reeds, an idealized vision of Egypt, where the grain grew tall and there was no sickness or sorrow. And in this perfect world, the air would be filled with the sounds she held sacred, the rhythm of the sistrum, the melody of the harp, the laughter of joyful celebration. Hathor's ultimate promise was not simply survival, but eternal festivity. The love, music, and intoxicating joy she granted in the mortal world were merely a prelude to the unending celebration she hosted in the next. She offered eternity to mortals, a promise of life without end. But could the goddess herself endure forever? As millennia passed and new gods rose to power, what would become of the Golden One when her own civilization began its final journey into the West? A belief so powerful, so deeply woven into the fabric of a civilization, requires a home. It demands more than myth and prayer. It demands stone, space, and sanctuary. For the followers of Hathor, these sanctuaries were not mere buildings, but living conduits to the divine, places where the heavens touched the earth. And of all her homes, one stands supreme, a masterpiece of devotion preserved for millennia. In the desert sands, the Temple of Dendor. Its current form dates to the Greco-Roman period. The site itself was sacred to Hathor for thousands of years prior. 'Tis one of the best preserved temple complexes in all of Egypt, a final, magnificent flourish of pharaonic religion. To approach it is to be humbled. Its colossal walls are a library of sacred knowledge, every inch carved with rituals, hymns, and images of the goddess and the pharaohs who honored her. Step inside the great hypostyle hall. Here, a forest of immense, columns blossoms towards the ceiling. But these are not simple pillars. Each is crowned with the serene, coward face of Hathor herself, watching over all who enter. They are a constant, reassuring presence in the cool, echoing dark. Look up, and you find a universe. The famous Dendora zodiac, a stunning map of the heavens, reveals the Egyptians' sophisticated understanding of cosmology, forever linking Hathor to the cycles of the stars and the destiny of humanity. Just beyond the main temple lies the Mamis, or birth house. Here, the divine origins of the pharaoh were celebrated, tying earthly power directly to Hathor's life-giving maternal essence. It was a potent affirmation of royal legitimacy. Nearby, the sacred lake, a still, dark mirror reflecting the sky, served as a place of ritual purity. Priests and priestesses would cleanse themselves in its waters before daring to enter the inner sanctum, preparing to meet their goddess. But Dendera was not her only domain. Hathor's presence was felt across the entire Egyptian world and beyond. At Deir el-Bahari, nestled against the Theban cliffs, Queen Hatshepsut built a stunning shrine depicting her own divine birth, with Hathor as a key protector. Far out in the barren Sinai Peninsula, at Sarabat, El-Qadim, and Timna, miners seeking turquoise stone sacred to the goddess carved humble shrines into the rock, praying to the Lady of the Turquoise for protection and success. Within these sacred walls, devotion was a daily performance. Each morning, high priests would perform the opening of the mouth ceremony on her statue, ritually awakening the divine spirit within the gold. They would clothe her in fine linen, adorn her with jewels, and present offerings of food, wine, and incense. Priestesses, the Shamayat, would fill the halls with sound, shaking the sistrum to soothe and delight the goddess, driving away malevolent forces with its rhythmic rattle. The great festivals saw these temples overflow with humanity. Pilgrims traveled for weeks for events like the Festival of the Beautiful Reunion, when Hathor's statue would sail up the Nile from Dendera to spend a joyous conjugal visit with her husband, Horus, at his temple in Edfu. These were times of ecstatic celebration, of feasting, music, and dance, where entire communities came to seek healing, ask for children, or simply feel the intoxicating presence of their golden goddess. For centuries, these rituals provided a rhythm to life itself. The stone walls echoed with prayer, the air was thick with incense, and the sistrum's jingle was the sound of divine favor. But faith, like the Nile, can change its course. Most enduring temples of stone can still fall silent. What happens to a goddess when her last priest lays down his offerings, and the music finally stops? What becomes of love when the world that worshipped it is gone? But how could humanity ensure that the fury of Sekhmet, sleeping within the heart of Hathor, would never again be unleashed upon the world? How could they appease a rage of such cosmic scale? The answer was not found in silent prayer or solemn sacrifice. It was found in a nationwide explosion of ecstatic revelry known as the Tik, the festival of drunkenness for the ancient Egyptians. This was one of the most vital religious events of the year. Its purpose was profound and terrifyingly necessary. To ritually reenact the myth of Hathor Sekhmet's pacification, and in doing so, to prevent the goddess from ever again tasting blood. This was not a party for its own sake. It was a carefully orchestrated piece of sacred theater. It's performed annually to guarantee the continuation of life itself. As the festival began, the air would fill with the frenzied jangling of the sistrum, the thrum of harps, and the rhythm of clapping hands. Central to the ritual was the mass consumption of beer and wine. Vast quantities of beer, often dyed red with ochre or pomegranate juice to explicitly resemble the blood that first slaked Sekhmet's thirst, were prepared and distributed by temple priests. Inscriptions at Hathor's temple in Dandora speak of worshippers drinking until they were traveling in the suite of the goddess. This was a sacred intoxication. In their inebriation, the worshippers were not simply losing their inhibitions, they were symbolically mirroring the goddess herself. They were reliving the moment she drank the blood-red beer, and her rage dissolved into a placid, joyful slumber. Each song, each dance, each sip of wine was a prayer, an act of sympathetic magic designed to soothe the divine beast within. Was a communal catharsis, a deliberate descent into a state of ecstatic chaos, where social barriers dissolved. The high priest and the common farmer, the noblewoman and the temple dancer, reunited in this shared spiritual state, bound together in their collective effort to keep the world safe. Was this simply a license for debauchery? The Egyptian mind? It was something far deeper. The ecstatic state, achieved through drink, music, and dance, was seen as a legitimate pathway to the divine. It was a way to bypass the structured rational mind and experience a direct, visceral connection with Hathor. For a fleeting, ecstatic moment, participants could touch the raw power of the goddess, not in her fury, but in her blissful release. They did not just worship Hathor. In the haze of the festival, they became her, soaring her benevolence for another year. This ecstatic communion, blurring of the lines between mortal and divine, reveals a goddess who presided over the most profound states of being. But what happened when this divine ecstasy was channeled not towards cosmic preservation, but into the most intimate of human relationships? From the celestial realm to the terrestrial throne, Hathor's influence was not merely spiritual, it was profoundly political. To be a pharaoh was to be more than a king, was to be a living god, a bridge between the mortal and the divine, But this sacred status was not self-proclaimed. Had to be granted, nurtured, and constantly reaffirmed. For this, the rulers of Egypt turned to their celestial mother. Hathor was the great legitimizer, the divine source from whom the right to rule flowed. Imagine the sheer power of this imagery. A king, the most powerful man on earth, depicted as a vulnerable child. In temple reliefs across the land, we see this extraordinary scene repeated. The pharaoh, sometimes as a boy, sometimes even as a reigning adult, kneels before Hathor in her bovine form. He is not praying or making an offering, but suckling directly from her udder. This was not a symbol of weakness, but of ultimate anointment. Through her divine milk, the king absorbed the very essence of divinity, becoming her son, protected and empowered. It was a sacred communion that no rival could challenge, a visual declaration that the ruler's authority came from the gods themselves. This divine connection was not limited to the male pharaoh. Royal women, particularly the great royal wife and the queen mother, were seen as earthly manifestations of the goddess. They adopted her titles, calling themselves companion of Horus, and wore her iconography as their own. The vulture headdress of a queen might be supplanted or joined by the iconic sun disk cradled between two cow horns. It's a direct and unmistakable link to Hathor. The queen was not just the pharaoh's consort. She was the living Hathor, embodying the principles of love, beauty, and creative power that ensured the continuation of the royal line and the stability of the entire nation. Perhaps no ruler felt this bond more deeply than the female pharaoh Hatshepsut. Her reign was a stunning break with tradition, and she anchored her legitimacy in the unshakable bedrock of her relationship with the divine. Her magnificent mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari is a testament to this. Less a tomb and more a sprawling stone symphony dedicated to her divine patrons. It's prominently featured as a chapel to Hathor, its columns carved into the form of the goddess herself. Here, reliefs show Hatshepsut being suckled by the divine cow and being embraced by the goddess in human form. Hatshepsut. Hathor was not just a state deity, he was her mother, her protector, and the divine guarantor of her unprecedented power. Centuries later, the great builder king, Ramses II, continued this tradition with unparalleled grandeur. Atia, while his own colossal temples at Abu Simbel glorified his military might, Tia, the smaller, exquisite temple beside it, was dedicated to his beloved queen, Nefertari, and to Hathor. The facade makes this connection explicit, with statues of the queen appearing as goddesses. Inside, Nefertari is shown being crowned by Hathor and Isis. Ramses understood this political theology perfectly. His power was magnified by his queen's divinity, a divinity she embodied through her identification with Hathor. From private chapels to monumental public works, the message was clear and consistent. This dynasty is chosen. This family is sacred. This power is eternal. This was not just religion. It was masterful propaganda, weaving the goddess so deeply into the fabric of kingship that to question the pharaoh was to question the divine order of the cosmos itself. But was her grace reserved only for the gilded halls of the palace and the colossal temples of kings? Did the farmer, the craftsman, the soldier, and the mother have their own connection to the Golden One? Beyond the world of royal decrees and divine mandates, Hathor lived another life, one whispered in the homes and celebrated in the festivals of ordinary Egyptians. A river of faith, once mighty, does not simply vanish when its banks begin to crumble. It finds new channels, new tributaries, merging with other waters while carrying its essential current forward. So it was with Hathor. As Egypt's own power ebbed and flowed, her influence began a remarkable journey beyond the Nile Valley to the east. In the turquoise mines of the Sinai Peninsula, Canaanite laborers working for the pharaohs encountered her. They saw in her a powerful protectress, a guardian of precious resources, and called her Balit, the lady, adopting her as their own. To the south, her cult flowed deep into Nubia. In the burgeoning kingdom of Kush, she was not merely a foreign deity, but a revered one. Her familiar, cow-horned visage carved into the sacred rock of Gebel Barkal and the temples of Meru. But her most profound transformation came with the arrival of the Greeks. When Alexander's armies brought the Hellenistic world to the shores of the Nile, they did not see an alien goddess, Atis. They saw a familiar face. Where an Egyptian saw Hathor, Lady of Joy, a Greek saw Aphrodite, goddess of love. The parallels were undeniable. Both were patrons of beauty, fertility, and sensual pleasure. Both held sway over music and dance. Both were even associated with the sea and sailors. This identification was so complete that the Greeks often referred to Hathor simply as the Egyptian Aphrodite. When Rome, in turn, conquered Egypt, this syncretism continued. The Romans saw their own goddess of love, Venus, in Hathor's form. Far from suppressing her worship, Roman emperors actively patronized her cult, completing the magnificent Temple of Dendora. It's one of the best preserved temples in all of Egypt, as a testament to her enduring power. She became a divine chameleon, adapting her colors to the dominant culture while her core essence remained unchanged. This was not a hostile takeover, but a fluid exchange. Attributes that were quintessentially Hathor's began to appear in the worship of other goddesses. Her sacred rattle, the sistrum, whose sound was said to soothe the gods and banish evil, became a key instrument in the rituals of Isis. As the cult of Isis spread like wildfire across the Roman Empire, it carried with it the music, the joy, and the life-affirming maternal aspects of Hathor. In this way, Hathor's spirit traveled from the heart of Africa to the shores of Britain. Hidden within the rites of her successor, consider the sheer power of this idea. A goddess so universal in her appeal that different civilizations, with different languages and beliefs, all looked upon her and saw the divine reflection of their own deepest desires for love, joy, and life. She was the cosmic dance in Egypt, the radiant beauty in Greece, the generative love in Rome. Her identity was not erased. T was translated through Aphrodite and Venus. Her fundamental principles transcended the boundaries of her homeland, proving that the human need to celebrate life is a universal language. She was a survivor, a testament to the resilience of belief. For over 3,000 years, her music had echoed through temple halls. Her smile had blessed newborns, and her intoxicating spirit had promised a heaven on earth. But as the Roman Empire itself began to fracture, a new story was being whispered out of the deserts of the Near East. It was a story of a single, all-powerful God, and a new path to salvation. This rising tide of monotheism offered a different kind of eternity, one that had little room for ecstatic dance, sacred beer, or a goddess with the horns of a cow. What happens when a goddess of earthly delights confronts a faith focused on the world to come? The final, silent battle for the soul of Egypt was about to begin, and its outcome would echo for millennia. And though her formal cults faded into the desert sands, Hathor did not disappear. At ease, she simply changed her form. The echoes of her laughter and the rhythm of her sistrum have not faded. They resonate today in the most unexpected corners of our modern world. A testament to a power too vibrant to be confined to the past. Whispers of her name and glimmers of her iconography appear in modern art, literature, and film. She is the fierce, cow-horned protector in a sprawling fantasy epic, the alluring and dangerous deity in a cinematic universe. It's the inspiration for music that seeks to capture both divine beauty and untamed strength. She has become a cultural touchstone, a potent symbol for the mystique of ancient Egypt. But for many, this is far more than a simple fascination with a bygone era. It is an active living relationship in a world searching for spiritual balance. Many have turned back to the great goddesses, seeking a divinity that feels whole. And here, in the heart of contemporary spirituality, Hathor thrives. In New Age circles and goddess worship traditions, she is revered not as a relic, but as a vibrant, accessible energy. She is the holistic deity, the healer of the body, the comforter of the spirit, the muse for the creative soul. In her, seekers find a divine feminine that is not just maternal or demure, but radiantly alive, ecstatically joyful, and utterly sovereign. She offers a path to the sacred that embraces the whole self, shadow and all, seen through a modern feminist lens. Her identity is reclaimed and powerfully celebrated. She is no longer defined by her relationships to male gods, not just a consort to Horus or a daughter of Ra. Instead, she is viewed as a paragon of female autonomy and embodied power. Her sensuality, once misinterpreted or downplayed, is now understood not for external validation, but as a profound source of her own divine authority. Her capacity for both fierce, lioness-like protection and ecstatic celebration makes her a complex, inspiring figure. She is a divine being who contains multitudes, demonstrating a strength that doesn't reject femininity, but finds its deepest, most authentic expression within it. To connect with Hathor today is to embark on an intentional exploration of joy itself. Her modern devotees don't just worship her, they seek to embody her life-affirming spirit. Artists and musicians draw inspiration from her patronage, channeling her creative fire. Healers invoke her nurturing aspect. People from all walks of life practice self-love in her name, learning to embrace pleasure, dance, and moments of pure celebration as sacred, spiritual acts. In a world so often weighed down by productivity and sorrow, her call is a radical one. To find divinity in the scent of perfume, the sound of laughter, the simple, profound happiness of being alive. This ancient connection to the cosmos also endures, woven into new tapestries of belief. In esoteric traditions and modern astrology, her spirit is intrinsically linked with the planet Venus, the celestial beacon of love, beauty, and harmony. She appears as a powerful archetype in tarot decks, a symbol of earthly delights, creativity, and the irresistible pull of attraction. Her stellar origins as the Lady of the Stars, never quite forgotten. In these systems, she is more than a myth. She is a cosmic principle, a force of creation and connection that reminds us our human experiences of love and art are reflections of a much larger, universal dance. From the silver screen to the sacred altar, Hathor has proven herself to be eternal. Her adaptability is perhaps her greatest strength. She is a divine mirror, reflecting whatever humanity needs from the feminine in any given era. A beautiful muse, a ferocious protector, a gentle comforter, or a symbol of radical liberation. Our enduring fascination is not just with a goddess of ancient Egypt, but with the timeless, essential human needs she represents. But in remaking her in our own modern image, do we risk losing the essence of who she truly was to the people who first carved her into stone? Or have we finally, after 4,000 years, begun to understand the full, breathtaking depth of her power? To look upon Hathor is to look upon a puzzle of the cosmos. How can one goddess be the celestial mother, the patron of miners, the mistress of intoxication, and the gentle guide for the dead? The answer is not found in a list of titles, but in a profound and unified wisdom of philosophy for living and for dying. This was her greatest gift, the wisdom of joy. For Hathor, pleasure was not a fleeting indulgence, but a sacred duty. Joy was a form of worship and gratitude, the most sincere prayer. To savor the sweetness of a fig, to feel the sun's warmth on your skin, to hear the laughter of a child, these were not distractions from the divine. These were the divine experienced directly. The universe, in her view, was an act of generosity, and to refuse its gifts was to turn one's back on the Creator. Life was meant to be lived with an open heart, a vessel to be filled with music, love, and light. This embrace of happiness was not simple hedonism.
The connection is
Tina's.
explicit.
It was a cornerstone of cosmic stability. Tina, it was her connection to Matt, the fundamental principle of truth, balance, and order. How could individual joy possibly uphold the order of the entire universe? The logic was as elegant as it was simple. A heart filled with gratitude and contentment is a heart in balance. An individual in harmony with themselves contributes to a family in harmony, which builds a society in harmony. Joy, rippling outward, was a force that actively held chaos at bay, by dancing, by loving, by creating beauty. The ancient Egyptians believed they were performing a sacred service, reinforcing the very fabric of reality. This is why earthly beauty and spiritual fulfillment were never separate. A finely carved chair, a shimmering turquoise necklace, the kohl lining a woman's eyes. These were not signs of vanity. They were echoes of a divine aesthetic. Ka, the tomb of the noblewoman Nefertari, contains vibrant scenes of her playing the board game Sekhmet, a testament to the belief that life's pleasures continued into the afterlife. To create and appreciate beauty was to honor Hathor's domain, to participate in the artistry of the gods. The musician striking a chord on the sistrum was not just an entertainer. He was a priest, channeling divine frequencies. The woman applying perfume was not just adorning her body, she was consecrating herself as a living temple, even in the face of life's greatest certainty. This wisdom offered not despair, but a different kind of hope. As mistress of the West, the land of the setting sun and the afterlife, Hathor did not greet the dead with judgment. She greeted them with sustenance, with music, and with the promise that the cycle was not ending, but merely turning. The joy experienced in life was a taste of the eternal celebration to come. She was the comforting hand that assured you the journey through darkness was simply a path back to light. A rebirth into a field of reeds where the best of life would bloom. Forever Hathor's teachings, woven into hymns and carved into stone, offer a guide to a life of meaning. It is a path that asks us to find the sacred in the sensory, the cosmic in the personal. It tells us to live fully, to love deeply, and to build a world of beauty, not just as a preference, but as a spiritual imperative. She is the divine permission to be happy, to see our own joy not as selfish, but as a vital contribution to the balance of all things. But a universe in balance requires more than just celebration. It requires protection. What happens when the harmony is shattered? When humanity's actions threaten to unravel Mat? What becomes of the Golden One when her boundless love is met with defiance? The stones of her temples have crumbled. The last of the hymns carried away by the desert wind. Hathor was never a goddess confined to stone and ritual. Her true temple was always the human heart. And it is there that her essence endures. She lives on, not as a figure to be worshipped, but as a series of archetypes, powerful currents that flow through the river of human experience. We see her in the fierce, unwavering gaze of a mother protecting her child. We hear her in the artist, lost to the world, channeling beauty through a brush or a melody. She is the passionate heart of the lover, the wild abandon of the dancer, the unyielding courage of the protector who stands for what is right. But what does it mean to find a goddess, not in the heavens, but within ourselves? It begins with the conscious cultivation of joy, not a fleeting superficial happiness, but a deep, resonant joy that comes from being fully alive. Hathor's path is not one of denial, but of immersion. It is an invitation to engage the world through your senses, just as she did. To truly taste a piece of fruit, to feel the sun warm your skin, to listen, not just hear, to a piece of music that moves your soul. It is the practice of finding pleasure not as a trivial indulgence, but as a sacred act, a radical form of self-love and acceptance in a world that often demands we be less than we are. In that acceptance, we must also make room for our own contradictions. Hathor teaches one of life's most vital lessons. We do not have to choose between the gentle, nurturing cow and the avenging, ferocious lioness.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
They are two faces of the same divine energy. Her legacy encourages us to embrace our own duality, to understand that our capacity for tenderness does not negate our strength, and our protective fire does not diminish our ability to love. To be whole is to contain both, finding a dynamic balance, a harmony within our own being. This is perhaps her most profound gift to the modern world. A challenge to find divinity in the ordinary. We are taught to look for the sacred in grand cathedrals and silent meditation, but Hathor reminds us that it is also in the shared laughter between friends, it's in the rhythm of our own breath, the steady, faithful beat of our heart. It is in the raw, messy, beautiful, and sensual experience of being human. The ancient Egyptians had no word that perfectly translates to art. For them, beauty and function, sacred and practical, were inextricably linked. Hathor's lesson is that the sacred is not separate from the everyday. It is found through the everyday. Her timeless message, then, is a radical call to celebration. A celebration of the body, the earth, the stars, and the intricate, invisible dance that connects them all. It is a powerful reminder that life, in all its complexity, its pain, and its ecstasy, is a gift to be cherished, a song to be sung, a dance to be danced. Hathor is more than a figure from ancient Egypt. She is a mirror reflecting the infinite richness of our own potential. She represents the permission we can give ourselves to live fully, to love deeply, and to create with joyful abandon. Her story, etched in stone and starlight, is not a closed chapter in a history book. It is an open invitation, a map to the enduring, beautiful, and divine power that resides within us all. Hathor's legacy is a call to you to find the divine in joy, beauty, and connection. Embrace these sacred forces within yourself and let them ripple out into your community. For in nurturing love, you don't just honor a goddess, you help bring harmony back to our world.